All right, Ryan, we're good to go? Okay. Good evening. Tonight is Tuesday, July 19th. We are having a selectmen's meeting, and this is being recorded by Whitman Hanson Cable Access Television. Would you please join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. With that, I know we've got folks here for a hearing, but if I would like to recognize the passing of a couple of quite dedicated civic servants who I had the pleasure of knowing. We'd like to recognize the passing of Bill Straight, and Peter Muse, and Della Snow. And of those three, I probably knew Bill the best, and I will tell you that he was the perfect embodiment of what a dedicated civic servant is. He volunteered on so many different committees and in so many different ways and just gave back to his community selflessly, and I know Peter and Della are the same. And so they will be missed, and so if you can join me in a moment of silence, I would appreciate that. All right, thank you. Mrs. Rain, may I impose upon you to read the public announcements? You can't hear me?
She's got the fan right behind her.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patricia. The AC is, at our last meeting, this is an AC update for those watching. At our last meeting, you watched the Board of Selectmen sweat it out. And tonight's meeting, we have the opposite effect because the air conditioning has, in fact, been fixed and it is in high gear. So we've got fans trying to push it out into the hallway. So this is the life we lead. Okay, all right. Mrs. Rain.
We currently have openings on the Capital Improvement Committee, the Highway Feasibility Committee, and the Economic Development Committee. These are all committees that will allow you to make a valuable contribution to our community with a minimum time commitment. Please visit the Town of Hanson's website, www.hanson-ma.gov, and click on Employment Opportunities for an application.
Lovely. And did we have upcoming meetings?
Oh, yeah, that's on here. Upcoming meetings, Select Board, July 26, 2022, and then Select Board, August 9th, 2022.
Okay. Great. With that, we have a hearing on our agenda for Smoke and Ashes Tobacco Company, 270 Main Street, which is an application for the retail sale of wine and malt beverages. And Lisa, can you refresh my memory? Do I need to take a vote to open the hearing?
Yes.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, great. So the hearing is now open. And Ms. Green.
Yes, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. So we have this evening, application for a new license for wine and malt retail sales, at the Smoke and Ashes Tobacco Company store. It's located at 270 Main Street. They have completed all of the requirements of the ABCC application. I have sent emails to the treasurer collector, building inspector, fire chief, and police chief. Excuse me. There are no violations. There are no outstanding financial responsibilities to the town. We've complied with all of the publication, publishing requirements, and all of the abutters were sent notice of the hearing by certified mail. The fee has been paid, and they are here tonight if anybody would like to voice any objections to this new license, please feel free to come up to the podium and state your objections. Otherwise, if there are no objections, I would recommend granting this license to this business.
Okay, well, I know we've got some folks with us. Are you folks abutters? No. You are smoking
They are
ashes,
smoking
so you're
ashes.
not going to object to this?
No.
Okay. Did we have anybody that wanted to make do you want to make a comment? I don't,
Other than I appreciate your time in this matter, and, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, did the board have any questions? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve Smoke and Ashes
move.
application for retail sale of wine and malt beverages. Was that
So moved.
Okay, great.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, great. Well, that was
Simple as that.
relatively
It was
painless,
easy.
thank you. And thank you for doing business in Hanson and bringing more business to Hanson. We appreciate it.
Madam Chair, if I may, so the next steps is the local licensing authority, which is the select board, will sign the certification form. We will send this to the ABCC, who will then now conduct their process and then be in touch with you. Once they let us know that everything is approved on their end, we do have the license that is ready to go. The selectmen will sign it at that time, and then we will reach out to you and let you know it's ready. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, great. Moving on, we do have audit report up next, but I wonder, may I impose upon you, I believe you're our auditor, I rushed to
You're welcome.
recall.
We'll be in touch.
You coming here before. May I impose, the police chief and just have him give a brief, department update, and then we'll move to you? Thank you, I appreciate that latitude.
Jim, I think it's
Sure.
First, thank, the tie looks great. You showed me up. I had planned on wearing a shirt and tie, and when I got out of the cruiser to walk in the house to put in one on, I went, no way.
I knew it was gonna be freezing in here.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Usually the one over there playing with the timer, you know? All right, a few brief things, on, some things to the police department. I sent a letter, I don't know if the whole board saw it.
Yes.
Regarding accreditation. So what accreditation is a review, there's 179 standards that we have to meet. Good news is, we do those things either in practice or in writing, but it's time to put it all together in writing, and send it to you. Also, there's been some changes with post, the police officer standard training, and the police reform. They're actually mandating that there's certain things that we do. It wasn't a big deal for me because we were already doing them. Sorry. So, we're gonna start working on that, and I've gotten people trained, and I've managed to make the schedule work where, one of the sergeants is 2 days a week going to be just strictly working on, policies and procedures and updating the rules and regs. Many of them haven't been updated since I first got here in 13. 12 and 13, we redid everything. So it is definitely time. I'm hoping that the first step is certification. After that is accreditation. I'm hoping that by the time I go, we're accredited. So we're looking at, I think we can actually get certified within a year. I think we're in that good a shape. But I'll keep you posted, and you'll know because you're gonna keep seeing policies coming in front of you. So when they do, call me, let me know if you have any concerns, and we'll work that out. But many of actually all the policies that are coming to you are at both a national and a Massachusetts standard. So there isn't gonna be a lot of wiggle room in some of the policies.
So you're pretty much using templates and then customizing for ours?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing if you ever see the charts. You'll see that when you see a sample policy, actually I sent you a sample policy I'm gonna talk about next. It'll have numbers, 1 dash, whatever. That's for the accreditation and the certification, so we know that we met that standard. It has to be in the policy or the procedure or the rules. So you'll see some weird numbers on the sides of things, but that's code for the accreditation people and for us. But yeah, they are definitely standards. We actually about a year ago, redid everything electronically, and I was getting ready to go, and then nationally they changed the version of what they were doing, which then trickled down. So we were just waiting for that to come out. There's no sense putting it all out to then change it 6 months later. So we're in good shape doing it anyways. So you'll be seeing that from us. The other issue I had is, and I know I've spoken to some of you about this, we were awarded a grant from District Attorney Timothy Cruz's office for a comfort dog. If you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have been like, there's no way I'm buying a pet for the cops. Having a little bit more of an open mind and having actually researched it a little bit more, these things are unbelievable. So we can't call it a therapy dog because we can't provide a service, but they're a comfort dog. So the dog will be used mainly in the schools. And the way part of this started was the schools had mentioned they would really like one, like guidance or something. And I told them, yeah, well, I'm not ready to do that. And I said, you know, there's some grants out there. Well, the grants are for law enforcement, not for the schools. So we got the grant that pays just for the dog itself, of $5,000, again, from Timothy Cruz's office. And I believe it's actually through drug seizure money, which actually makes me even more amused on how we got the money. So the dog is mainly going to spend its time in the school. The handler is going to be the school resource officer. I've already sat down and impact bargained this with the union. The union took a whopping nothing for this. They just wanted language to understand how the dog's going to be used, how the dog's going to be, if God forbid something happens to it, how it's going to be taken care of, and what are the financial responsibilities. My goal is this to be a $0 program to the taxpayers. I think I can do that, but in honesty, it's probably going to cost a little bit of money. The liability insurance, insurance for the dog, like health insurance for the dog, things like that. But I can take care of that in my existing budget. And again, you're only talking maybe a couple $1,000s a year. When I started looking at, let me step back. Besides being a comfort dog, this dog that we're going to get, if you guys blessed us tonight, is right now it's a 5-month-old female, partially trained, and is showing great signs for tracking, what we call friendly tracks or soft tracks. So if somebody's autistic person's missing or elderly person's missing, we're not sending Cujo out there with a muzzle on to find them and scare them. You know, foofy dogs are going to go out and sit down next to them and lick them, and they'll be happy and everything will be wonderful. So this dog has got a lot of promise. The people we're working with, it's called GOFI, or Golden Opportunities for Independence. Besides doing therapy or comfort dogs, they mainly do service dogs. And I went out to their kennel, unbelievable. These dogs are just incredible. There was 7 police canines, comfort dogs there, mainly from Norfolk County, that are already working in the schools or in their communities. And I watched them train. We trained with them for the day. So we had an idea what it's going to take. These dogs are just, again, incredible. If you've ever seen the marathon, at the end of the marathon, there's a golden retriever that, I forget the golden retriever's name. They look like them. Incredibly well behaved, just great dogs. But I like the idea that we'll have the ability to do the soft tracks as well. Again, the cost should be somewhere around 0. The initial cost, we've had people tell us that they're going to make donations to GOFI directly, which is a 501(c), so they get a tax write-off, and the almost $20,000 for the dog and the training is paid for. I know, like I said, I keep saying this, I'm trying to make it cost nothing to the town. There's probably going to be a little bit of cost, but when I talked to the other canines, the existing ones, they were like, it's unbelievable. They said people just call up, and after they meet the dog, they're like, well, can I buy a food for the next 2 months? Can I do? And they have accounts at, you know, at the pet shops. The vets have credits, so I'll keep you posted on that. But once we get the dog, I think things are going to really get going. And the cops are talking about doing like a side fundraiser too. So that being said, do you have any questions on it? I know I sent that with the proposed policy too. I don't know if anybody had a chance to review it ahead of time.
I did review it. I did have a question. There was a provision in there that after 3 years, the police officer keeps the dog. Can you just talk to me about that?
So, so they varied. I looked at a number of different policies with it. So a couple of things can happen with our policy and the agreement with the union. One is if a handler has the dog for 3 years, remember, this dog is with them 24/7. So it's a family member. To take that away from somebody, it's not, that's not right.
It's mean to the dog.
It's mean to the dog.
Yeah.
Now, there is a provision in there too that I can take the dog away if the training's not being kept up, if there's a problem with the dog. Because it's gonna constantly go back for training, like all canines do. So, when I looked at them, they were anywhere from 3 to 5 years. A dog like this, probably service life is probably 8 to 10 years. So, and, I mean, it's a big commitment on the handler too, when you think about it, 3 years. They're getting, their benefit is they're gonna be scheduled on 7-hour days. That last day, because I have to, under Fair Labor Standards Act, give them something for the care and the grooming and the feeding of the dog. So we agreed to, you'll work a 7-hour day. But we all know it's gonna be more than 7 hours, weekends and everything else. So that's why that provision's in there. So, no, I don't plan on giving the dog away.
Okay. We want him to stick around we want both of them to stick
I'll
around.
be more worried
for a
about
long
somebody
time.
kidnapping it than actually a dog napping it.
Did
But-
anybody else have any questions?
Question, no, but statement, I just think it's fantastic that you're doing this. As the token mental health and human services person on the board here, I think it's fantastic to even provide, A, that you found this resource, B, that you're capitalizing on it, but most importantly, I just think it's gonna be a great service and a great morale booster for the town. So, again, kudos to you and your department for just always doing amazing work.
Yeah, it won't just be in the school either. We're gonna be going to the senior center. I'm gonna talk to the people at All-American. We'll bring it around to various things, the library during the day, you know, different people see it. We went by the senior center and an interesting comment that I hadn't thought of was, some of the people there said, well, I can't control a big dog anymore. I had dogs all my life, I can't have one now. But the thought that, hey, I can come by and visit, you know, whatever this thing's name's gonna be, we haven't figured that out yet. You know, that's just another great asset.
I know you're not calling it a therapy dog, but my sister is a recreational therapist in a nursing home, and pets really, elderly folks, even folks with dementia and
Oh, yeah.
memory loss really respond to pets. It's just something, I don't know, almost primal, you know?
I did talk to a friend of mine who's a psychologist about this too, to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And she was like, no, animal therapy is wonderful.
There's a myriad of research to back up all of that. There's really no downside to what
Yeah.
you're doing. So the fact that you're even able to try to bring it down to zero cost is amazing in and of itself, because I feel like the town would really back you in whatever you needed to do to make this happen. But, again, I just think it's great that you're doing this.
Most importantly, if there's a cost, I can absorb it within my budget, so we're gonna be all right. If the AC doesn't break the station like it does every year, so.
No promises.
It was a little rough today, but, one last thing on mental health. We've been working with the town of Carver, Plimpton, and Halifax to, get a grant, and, we'll most likely be working through a service called, Children and Family Services, who are out of New Bedford and Plymouth. They're a crisis intervention, well, part of what they do is crisis intervention. So, we're trying to get a grant that we get a clinician assigned to us that would either be at one of our stations at any given time. They have a set schedule they'd work. That way, we're trying to keep people that don't need to go in the ambulance to the hospital for their 3-day plus stay, depending upon what's going on. Also, we're gonna use them as follow-up when we do have some mental health issues. Use them as follow-up to make sure that the people are getting the services they need. You know, again, it's something that we're cops, we know you're not right, and we know that you're okay. And sometimes there's a big gray area. This is gonna help a lot. And the Bridgewaters, with Whitman and Bridgewater State College have 2. They had 1, it's way too much for them to handle. They're up to 2, they may need more. We figure, well, if we can get the 1 on a grant, even Children and Family Services said you're probably gonna need 2. And just for an example, when fire ran some of the transports, so this is just the people that go in the ambulance for a psych eval, none of the stuff that we do through court. It was averaging about 3 a week to 4 a week.
Wow.
And the thing about that is we can't really pull those stats real good, because you might be going in there for another medical issue, but the underlying issue is a mental health issue. And it's the same with the substance abuse. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna get the grant. The federal government's dumping tons of money out at it. And it's just a matter of, we haven't been able to line it all up, and when you're trying to do it with 4 towns, it's not the easiest thing in the world. But I'm hoping very shortly that we'll have that service as well. And I'll let you know when that happens.
I think that's all really great work and really amazing. Now, for this evening, are you looking for us to approve you getting the dog and then also approve the memorandum of understanding that you entered into with the union, or that you'd like us to enter into with the union?
So I have the original, yeah.
Okay.
I'll give Lisa.
I have
Yeah,
one quick
absolutely,
question,
yeah.
Chief.
So everybody has this.
And I think it's still the same, but the school resource officer
Yes.
is also the liaison for the senior center?
He is one of them, yeah. I'm gonna try and get you another one, because he's gonna be going there with the dog.
Okay.
Don't worry.
That's why I thought that was cool, that,
Yeah.
you know, it just happens to be the same officer, and even, yeah, they would love to have the dog down there.
So once I give him this dog, there's gonna be a training period. I'm gonna see about getting another maybe one of the day shift officers to be able to pop in there a little more often. But Mary's very good about calling either myself or the deputy chief or Derek anytime there's any needs for us to definitely be over there.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was part of the plan, that was gonna be one of his stops, so.
Okay, cool.
I told Officer Harrington he's gonna be the second most popular person in town after the dog, so. You need one that doesn't say draft?
Yeah, that would be amazing. For the actual signatory purposes.
No, the signatory ones.
yes.
The originals here that the union signed.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion, to, enter into the side letter by and between the town of Hanson and the Hanson Police Relief Association, Mass Cop Local 408, regarding the comfort dog as, provided to you in your packet.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. And I will entertain a motion to allow Chief Mix to move forward with the, I feel like I'm treating this like it's a non-entity, but anyway, with the acquisition of a comfort dog.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, thank you.
Will town hall employees be available to the dog?
Oh, the town hall employees do need a little
Yeah,
visit
well-
occasionally,
So,
yes.
yeah, I didn't wanna go into a bunch of stories, but I spent half of the day listening to stories about, this one, I'll tell you real quick. So, they told me like one of the grumpiest cops at one of the stations, I won't say what town. They're like, he's negative about everything, been on Midnights forever, you know, creature of the night. And, you know, it was always, when he saw the dog, was just didn't pay any attention. Then one day they're watching the cameras, and he's out there when the dog's in the car, and he's playing like peekaboo with the dog and stuff. So, yeah, it definitely brings up the atmosphere. And these are so unassuming, gentle dogs that when you bring them in, even people who fear dogs are just, you know, eventually they're coming over and patting them. It's just, I mean, just, like I said, it was just story after story on the positives of this. So, and again, from people that I didn't think would be, you know, enthused about it, so.
Well, when she's ready, we'd love to have a little visit.
Well, she might, after your vote, and as long as somebody tells Todd I can spend that $5,000 that was the grant, you might see her next week.
Wow,
That's
okay.
fantastic.
That'd
Yeah,
be great.
because we'll stop bringing her around even though she's not fully trained. What's part of the training though is to have to keep doing that, so.
Socialization.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's
I
great.
do hope the ride-alongs, they'll work out well. I've worked with Child and Family Services for like 15 years. Amazing organization, so congratulations on the partnership with them too, if that works
Thank
out.
you. We work with them for crisis intervention. They'll either come out or do stuff with the phone for us, but
Yeah.
to have somebody actually assigned to us that can do follow-ups and know the people as we know the people, that'd be great,
Yeah,
so.
that's fantastic.
Quick question, Chief.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Is it possible to send donations to that organization for,
Oh, don't worry, I'll let you know where the donations go, real soon, probably in the next week or two. What happened, just to explain it in disclosure, I had a number of people that are paying the rest of it, and instead of trying to go through the town and, you know, it's just moving money
Yeah.
around, and you guys voting on it and everything, they're like, well, can we just go right to, you know, the Go fee? And I'm like, sure, that works even better. So, after that, we do have a gift account line already set up that the town accountant set up for me. This is all good, right? Because you do the auditing. Shouldn't have had him right after. So there is a gift line.
He's writing furiously some additional concerns.
Don't worry, hey, the grant money's under the laws of the Commonwealth, so that's already clean. But there is a gift line that you'll be able to make a donation through the town, and that'll take care of food and grooming and everything else we need. But that's already set up, but the balance is 0 right now, so.
Well, that's amazing, and it's good news, and we love it.
Great.
All right, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Chief.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, and with that, we have a town audit report, and I believe it's been a minute or two, a year or two, perhaps even 3, since we've had you folks come physically here and give us an update. So, and I'm sorry, I don't have your name here, so I'm. Okay, great. So, if you don't mind, just, heading up. Yeah, oh, yeah, please.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to present the results of the town's FY21 audit. Just like to start off by thanking the town administrator, town accountant, treasurer collector, and the rest of the finance team for all the cooperation and assistance that we received during the course of the audit. Everybody was really great to work with and very responsive and professional to interact with, so that went really well. From a timing standpoint, we're out for our preliminary work in mid-June. And at that time, we're basically trying to get as much of a head start on the year-end audit work that we can. We're, doing things like auditing the budget, we're testing transactions, we're auditing debt. There's a bunch of things that we can do at that time, and like I said, it's just to get a head start. Then we came back for the year-end work in mid-November, and at that time, we're wrapping up any loose ends that we might have had. We're completing all of our year-end audit procedures, and then we're basically compiling the 3 reports that you should have got copies of at this point. So the financial statements, the report on federal awards, and then the management letter. Overall results of the audit were that we were able to issue an unmodified opinion, which is the best you can get. It means the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Reporting deadlines were met. The information that we received was accurate. We didn't have to propose any journal entries to correct any errors that we found, or that we didn't find. We didn't find any errors, so we didn't have to propose any entries to correct any errors, which is great. And that should give you a good sense that you can rely on the reports that you're being provided with throughout the year, that you're getting good, accurate information.
And excuse me for a moment.
Sure.
But, Lisa, we don't have those reports in our packet. And so can you just make sure that we get copies to provide to everybody?
Yes, I thought that everybody had gotten them, it was probably the prior board that got them.
I think it was.
'Cause I don't have any other ones.
And also, just for the benefit, we have a couple of new members. I was wondering, and I'm sorry to kind of interrupt you midstream, but I was wondering whether you might describe what an audit is, what exactly you're what the lens is that you're looking through, just so that people have an understanding of that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the purpose of the audit is for us to be able to give an opinion on the financial statements, and so that was kind of why I highlighted the unmodified opinion. So all the work that we're doing is to basically be able to give an opinion and hopefully not have to give a qualified opinion or an adverse opinion or something like that. And so we're basically satisfying ourselves through all the different audit procedures that we perform that the financial statements are fairly stated. And so the audit's not designed to detect fraud. It's not a forensic audit. It's a financial statement audit. But if we find fraud, which we could in the course of the audit, we would obviously bring that to your attention. And then there's also the single audit part of it, which is the audit of the federal awards. And so for any entity that spends more than $750,000 a year in federal funds, they have to have a separate compliance audit over those federal awards. And so there's detailed procedures that we have to perform, and we have to go through an analysis to determine what awards actually need to be audited and so forth. And then we also produce a management letter, and we're required to put things in writing that are considered to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. We did not find anything that rose to that level. We didn't find any concerns with your internal controls, or you would have known about it a long time ago before this meeting. But those are things that we're required to put in writing in a management letter. But the comments that we have in the management letter do not rise to that level. these are more things that came to our attention while we were doing our work that we thought, you know, would be improvements that you could make, or things to, you know, maybe efficiencies or improvements, and those are types of things that we try to put in the management letter as value-added things, and any type of significant deficiency or material weakness would be required if they existed, but we didn't
So,
identify anything like
Since we
that.
didn't all get the packet,
Yep.
can you highlight what, some of the things that you thought we might want to work on?
Yep, I absolutely will. I also wanted to mention that we did get a very good audit package from the town. We send out checklists for the audit, like before we come out for preliminary work, before we come out for year-end work, and we basically try to put everything on there so that they know exactly what we need, and some clients are better about gathering the information, and, you know, we love it if we get the information in advance, and at a minimum, we like to have it available when we arrive. Well, we got the majority of the information that we needed before we got here, and we're able to actually get started earlier on the work and looking at it and prepping and stuff like that. And then anything that we didn't get beforehand, we got, and it was available for us when we got here. So we really appreciate that. That, from our standpoint, makes the audit go very smoothly. And so we, from our standpoint, felt like it was a very smooth audit process, and hopefully your team feels the same way, because we try to make it as smooth as we can too, and to try to be as unobtrusive as we can be. We know that everybody still has their daily duties that they're trying to perform, and they have work that they need to get done, and so we just try to work within those parameters. As far as the transaction testing goes, we look at about 25 or 30 transactions in each of the different cycles: revenues, expenditures, payroll, journal entries, and we didn't find any issues when we looked at that stuff. We found that transactions were recorded in the proper accounts based on the nature of the expense or the revenue. We found that things were properly approved and authorized, and we found adequate supporting documentation for everything that we looked at, so there were no issues there, which was great. From a financial highlight standpoint, you maintain your AA2 bond rating with Moody's, which is great. That increased in 2020 from AA3 up to AA2. And that, of course, is going to get you better rates on your borrowing. Your free cash totaled $2.2 million. That was up $200,000 from the prior year, so that's a good trend. General fund balance totaled $6 million. Of that, $4,800 was restricted for debt service. $1.3 million was committed, and of that, $1.1 relates to different articles that were voted at town meeting, and that money just automatically carries forward until spent or rescinded. And then $187,000 related to the school stabilization fund. You also had $37,000 of assigned fund balance, and if you have the financial statements, I could tell you the page that you could see these on. It's page 16 if you happen to want to look at it. In the assigned fund balance related to your encumbrances, that left you with $4.7 million of unassigned fund balance, and that was about 18% of your general fund expenditures. The credit rating agencies usually like to see a minimum of around 10, and then for the AAA rated communities, they like to see higher. And so you have a good, healthy reserve balance there, which is really great. And within that is also your general stabilization fund of $1.4 million. And after you take out your stabilization, that's really kind of the starting point for the free cash calculation. Collections continue to be very good. Your collection rate was 99% of the commitment for real estate and personal property tax. You can't do it a lot better than that. General fund budgetary results, your general fund decreased by $67,000, and that was mainly due to using about $2 million worth of free cash, and then there was some overlay surplus, a smaller amount of that to fund the budget. And then that was offset by a revenue surplus of $887,000, and expenditures coming in under budget by $633,000. So those results indicate that you have a structurally sound budget and that you have good budgetary controls in place. Your $67,000 decrease, you're very close to break even with that, even using all of that free cash that you did to balance the budget. Community Preservation Fund totaled $2.4 million at the end of the year. That was up about $309,000 just because you brought revenues in and you committed some of that money, but you haven't expended it yet. Water operations, this is on a budgetary basis, which is how you maintain your books. Your fund balance totaled $1.8 million. That's a $181,000 increase from the prior year. And that tells us that your rates are covering your operating costs, which is great. Don't need a subsidy or anything like that from the general fund. Next thing is the OPEB liability. You contributed another $25,000 to the OPEB trust fund in fiscal 2021. Your fund balance at the end of the year totaled $203,000, so you're starting to accumulate a balance in there. Your net OPEB liability totaled $19.1 million. That was a decrease from the prior year of $521,000. Your discount rate was 3%, which was consistent with the prior year, and that is a blended rate. So you qualify for a blended discount rate on your OPEB trust fund because you set up the trust and you're now contributing to the trust, and you have a policy in place to continue to contribute money to the trust. So now that gets factored in to determining your discount rate. And so what they can do is the actuary will apply the long-term rate of return for as many years as the balance in the trust is considered to be sufficient to pay benefits. And the long-term rate of return is 6.66%. And then for any years where it's not considered to be sufficient, they have to use the AA 20-year municipal bond rate, which was 2.18%. And communities that aren't funding at all have to use that rate, 2.18%, at least, and that changes every year. And so you were essentially able to use a discount rate which was almost a full percentage point higher, and that had the effect of reducing the liability by about $3.5 million. So even though you haven't put a lot of money in the trust yet, just having that plan in place, it's really helping you a lot. That's a pretty significant decrease.
And how do we compare, because I always get quite anxious when we talk about this pension liability that we've got, it's like an anvil hanging over our head, and, you know, then you're saying it's 19 million, and, woo, we've got 200,000 towards it. How do other communities, you know, compare to us? Are we behind the 8 ball here? I mean, I feel like we are, but I'm sure there are others who are further behind, but...
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I think that getting the trust set up and starting to contribute to the trust is important. And then over time, if you can start to increase those contributions, I think, you know, you've kind of got the ball rolling. And what we see is the same type of thing happen. People will get it set up and they'll start contributing. And then over time, they might start ratcheting that up and contributing more. And some of the other communities are also considering like dedicating the pension funding, like once there's a legal requirement to fund your pension. And so once that is funded, which it's supposed to be funded by 2040, then that appropriation is going to become available. And some communities are then, you know, they're creating a policy that once the pension's fully funded, they're going to start sending that money over to the OPEB trust fund. So that's another way to do it, to start, you know, getting some extra money into the OPEB trust fund. And if you're, you know, if you can afford to put a little bit more money towards it, you can see that just, you know, a small amount has a big impact on the liability. And
Okay, thank you.
yep. And speaking of the net pension liability, your pension plan is with the Plymouth County Retirement System. That liability for the town was $12.4 million, and that's measured on a calendar year, so that was as of 12/31/20. And that was a decrease of $2 million from the prior year. The pension system is 68% funded. As of 12/31/20, that was a 6% increase in the funding over the prior year. So that's what you want to see as we're getting closer to that 2040 date. However, I'm sure things aren't going to be looking quite as rosy this year with the stock market the way it is. As far as debt goes, you didn't issue any new long-term debt. You had $2.6 million of long-term debt outstanding for both your governmental and your water enterprise fund. Coincidentally, it was the same number. You had some short-term debt, about $1 million, and that was to fund a fire engine, McQuon Street rehab, and a septic loan program. And your general fund debt service is at about 2% of your total appropriations, which is probably a little bit lower than what we see in a lot of communities. I think it's probably, you know, tends to be closer to like 4 or 5%. So you're not, you know, you don't have a high debt ratio by any means. And then that was really what I wanted to highlight on the financial statements. And from there, I was going to move on to the management, the report on federal awards, and then do the management letter. The federal awards is very quick. So I think I already mentioned, you're required to have the audit of federal awards if you expend over $750,000 in a fiscal year. and the town spent $925,000, so you qualified for that. $650,000 was from the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant, and that's actually the one that we had to audit as a major program. Another $200,000 was for assistance to firefighters, and then $75,000 was just other various grants. Based on our testing of the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant, we didn't find any deficiencies in internal control. We didn't have any question costs. And we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on compliance with the program requirements. So that is another clean report, best results that you could get on that. So, and then that takes us to the management letter. There were no new comments in FY22, but there were 6 prior year comments in there. Of those 6, 2 were considered to be fully resolved, 3 were partially resolved, and 1, I would call it under consideration. The 2 that were resolved, the first one relates to, there was a delay in posting the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes in fiscal 20, and we were able to get all the minutes that we needed in FY21, so it seems like that's been resolved, and we're getting those are getting posted more timely. Highway Department, there was a recommendation in there to document policies and procedures related to documenting hours worked. That was done, so that's considered to be resolved. And then the partially resolved comments, there was a comment related to adopting a cash and investment policy, and that's just something that's a best practice to have, and it's also something that's recommended by the accounting standards too, just to address like custodial risk, credit risk, interest rate risk, all the various risks around cash and investments, you know, who you're banking with, and you know, whether they need to be insured, whether funds need to be 100% insured, collateralized, or you use some type of a rating agency to monitor the banks. I understand that that's in draft, and it was, I think, supposed to go to the board for review in FY22. I'm not sure if that happened or not, but I assume it'll happen soon if it hasn't already. The next comment related to consider writing off uncollectible ambulance receivables. So the ambulance receivable balance was $817,000 at the end of the year, which is a pretty high balance, and the receivables actually date back to 2017, which was an improvement over the prior year because 2015 and 16 receivables got written off in fiscal 21. So there was some progress made there. But what we're recommending is that there's an annual review and write-off process so that, and there should probably be some, like a policy that requires that to be done. Yep. On an annual basis, just so that you don't want that receivable to just keep growing, and then, you know, you don't know how much of that is really collectible until you go through it, and it's a long, painstaking process when it goes back to 2017, so the more current you can keep that, the easier it is going forward.
I believe that our fire chief has outsourced the billing. It was being done by his secretary, and I think that was kind of unwieldy with the rest of what she had. And so I believe it's being outsourced, but we can definitely follow up when we have an update from him and just find out where we're going on that. Okay. Yeah.
There was another one related to developing a fraud and prevention policy, and again, I believe there's a draft on that, and we were under the standing that it was expected to get finalized in FY22, so not sure where that ended up. And then the one that is under consideration is a fraud risk assessment. And so the response was that the town is considering hiring a consultant to complete a fraud risk assessment pending funding. And so that was a consideration for FY22. Again, I'm not sure, haven't had a chance to follow up on that yet to see if anything's happened with it, but most of our clients end up hiring a third party to at least do the initial one on that. It involves going to different departments, talking to people, and writing a report. That's, you know, you have to get it documented. And then basically what you're doing is you're looking for areas where there's potential for fraud to occur. And then as part of that assessment, you're also documenting the controls that are in place. And then you're making an assessment to say, okay, are we comfortable with these controls? Do we feel that they're sufficient? And there's a cost-benefit analysis too. You know, you don't want the cost to outweigh the benefits of the controls, but you really want to be able to see, okay, these are our risk areas, these are our controls, and you as a board, are we comfortable with this? Or do we feel that we want more controls, or are we going overboard in some areas? So that's kind of what that one's related to. We had this comment in all of our clients' management letters when it came out, and the majority of them have had it done at this point, and I think they got some pretty good feedback from it, too.
Do you have folks that you recommend, or like a list of people that you recommend to do that type of work, or?
There's someone down in this area who does a lot of them, CPA. I can send you his contact information.
That would be great, because I know we had, along with the town of Whitman, had voted to do like a forensic audit of the schools. We could not get anybody to respond to the RFP. It's been, they're, well, you know, all the auditors are so busy with all the CARES Act, you know, and all that, you know.
And the
all
ARPA.
that, yeah, all that COVID-related stuff, that
Yep.
it's just difficult to get anybody to pick up something different. So, yeah, we would appreciate it if you had a name that you could
Okay, yeah,
throw
sure.
our way. Yeah,
I can send it to Lisa. I have her email.
great.
Okay. And that was it for the comments in the management letter. So, again, just to reiterate, from our standpoint, we thought the audit went very well. Your financial position is healthy, strong, and it was a good audit from our standpoint.
Anybody have any questions?
No questions, but thanks again. This is my second time I've heard you do this, and it's really thorough, and I really appreciate you, you know, keeping us honest. So thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, have a good night.
You too, thank you.
Take care.
We're on a roll, and tonight we have Tony DeFrayis, our famous town planner, and he is going to talk to us about town-owned properties. And this sort of came up, historically as a board, at least since Mr. Hickey and I have been on, we've been pretty good about getting, properties that were perhaps taken for back taxes, back onto the rolls and get them popping and sold. But the Economic Development Committee, really wanted to look at, are there other properties that the town owns that we could leverage to attract businesses, to, you know, either lease or buy, or any combination thereof. And so Mr. DeFrayis took it upon himself to do a very comprehensive inventory, and I appreciate all the time you put into it. Hopefully I didn't just steal all of your thunder, but.
No, probably gonna need a minute or two to get this,
Up.
get things going here. Here we go. Why am I not seeing my screen? I could get a 2-minute recess?
You know what, can I vote on can we take a vote on a couple of quick items while
Absolutely.
we'll multitask,
Yep.
okay? Because we can do that. Okay, so we'll move on to vote to authorize installation of streetlight at 171 Phillips Street. This is part of the special conditions as approved by the zoning board. Lisa, did you have any description, or is that pretty much self-explanatory as written?
No, well, just to give a little background, so the new property over on Phillips Street, is the new complex, the new apartment complex. And they had hoped to install a street light on the pole that's at the corner of one of the entrances. Because it's on town street, National Grid will not allow them to install a light of which they will be billed for. So, they're asking us for, well, National Grid needs a letter from us stating that it's okay to install the light, and the town will be billed for that light, but there's no other way that the Dakota Partners can pay for it. They have wanted to work with National Grid to pay for that light, but National Grid will not allow it. So they do need a letter from the Board of Selectmen saying that they approve National Grid to go forward with installing that street light
How much is that
at
gonna
that
cost
corner.
the town, and why are we paying it when it's an individual, developer?
Though, because of where the pole is located.
I get that, but can't we be reimbursed by Dakota Partners? Is there a
We can
reason?
certainly figure out a way to bill them, but that might take a little bit because we don't really have any mechanism right now in place to bill a company for electricity. So we may have to work that out with National Grid.
So are you saying on an ongoing basis, the town is gonna be paying for the electricity for the light for a privately developed property?
Yes, because the pole is located on a town street. That's why.
Can,
Please, Mr. Weeks, I would love to hear what your thoughts are, questions.
the problem is I don't have enough information to have a thought on this. Can we table this for the next meeting? Because I'd like to see the plans. Can we see the plans for this? Because
Yeah.
do we Do we maintain this too?
No, we wouldn't maintain it. No, I mean, well, it's a National Grid, it's a street light by National Grid, so the town would not maintain it.
Was the pole there, or was the pole installed because of the?
It was already there.
It was already there?
It was already there,
So we're
right.
putting a light on an existing pole,
And then we're paying for the
and
electricity.
we're paying for the electricity.
Something just, this is not a good end result. It's
No.
not sitting right with me. And I question, you know, are we able to, you know, I don't know, do some kind of a betterment assessment for them, that we've got to do that, or some, yeah, can we bill them for the electricity? Is there a way to add it on to their tax bill? I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious,
That's
like,
getting dicey.
you know.
Yeah.
It's an odd situation because, like I said, Dakota Partners has been working with National Grid. They want to pay for the light, they want to pay for the electricity, but National Grid will not allow them to. So that puts us in a position to figure out how we need to use our resources to
I'd love to know.
get them to pay for the
So-
light.
If I may, I mean, we could table it till next week, like Joe said, or, the pole was already there before 171, and it's Phillips, not Phillip Street, right? It's Phillips with the
Phillips
S at
Street,
the
yeah.
end, okay.
Yes.
To put the light there, the company is willing to pay for it, we just don't know how to do it. So we have town council write something up where they would agree to a contract and pay the electricity. Then we write the letter, then National Grid puts the light up.
Yeah, that's gonna take a
That's it.
separate meter, I think National Grid is gonna be objecting to putting a separate meter and keeping track, and that's what they're balking at.
Yeah, logically, I go with what Jim's saying, because
Yeah.
it makes the most sense.
I
It's just,
agree.
I don't have enough information this is too vague of an ask to even, I don't have enough information to even have an opinion on this, to be honest. I don't even know what we
I
can and
agree,
can't do.
we don't have enough information, we don't know what the cost is going to be, we don't know whether there's a mechanism for us to get paid back. I feel as though it would be irresponsible for us to even vote on it tonight, because we're just lacking sufficient information. And
It's also part of the
are
special
they,
conditions.
you're saying that it's required by the zoning board of appeals when they approved the Phillips Street project? They required that street light?
Yes.
So is it a
Special
possibility that they could, that the Dakota Partners could go back to the zoning board of appeals and explain the situation and ask whether the pole could be located on their property and they would pay for the electricity?
Okay. I can certainly ask those questions.
I don't even know, no, or put a new one. Put a
Yeah.
new pole. I don't even know what I'm talking about, really. I'm just spitballing.
They're gonna
You know.
put it to the condo association anyway.
Probably,
That's
yeah.
who's gonna end up paying. And it's gonna be a simple contract, $250 a year to pay for the electricity on that pole. It's one pole, it's on for a certain amount of time. And that's why let's get some more facts.
I
It
agree.
may be 500, it may be 125.
Right.
We're not looking to make money, but we're certainly not gonna lose any money.
No, but we also need to be consistent, because I want to remind you that years ago, when Ron Sanangelo was here, it turned out that there were a bunch of streetlights that the town was paying to power. And he said, why are we doing that? Why are we paying to power streetlights all over town? Not, you know, not on the main drags, but like private streets. And he had National Grid turn them all off. So this would be setting a precedence that would be going backwards, basically, of like, okay, now we're doing it for this. I honestly think the right result is, Lisa, to, perhaps you could contact Mr. Cushing, who's the new chair of ZBA, and just get a sanity check from him on whether this is something that they might be able to revisit.
Okay.
I would also say this is just, I want to try to limit the amount of things that could turn into not a problem right now, but maybe a problem 5 years down the road. And we're looking back with hindsight saying to ourselves, well, who approved that and why?
Exactly. This is one of
You know
those
what I mean?
things.
It's one of those little,
This is
like,
one of those
wonky
things.
potential things.
Yeah.
I think it is simple, to Jim, to your point, I think it really is like a simple thing. Problem is I don't have anything to actually back that up.
All right, so we,
have
in
somebody-
short, we're gonna move to table that, and I'm sorry, Mr. DeFrayis, it looked on the surface, it looked like a very quick discussion.
One day nickel license would have been a lot easier.
Mr. Malisi.
Madam Chair, so, I know that they have like a bus stop there on that condo location there. I mean, I would just caution to think of a safety issue that might be there.
Oh, yeah, we don't want to cause a safety issue, and I don't want people feeling unsafe walking down that street or any of that type of thing. We definitely don't want that, but I think that if there's another option,
Do we already have streetlights on Phillip Street?
Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I want to see the plans. I don't know anything,
we don't know
I
anything.
don't know enough about it to.
Yeah, we don't know any of
have an
that
opinion.
information.
Jim didn't do a
These are all valid
streetlight audit
questions.
for the town last year?
No, we did not do a streetlight audit. Okay, thank you, Mr. Melisi. Mr. Frias, thank you for your continued patience. We'll
Well,
turn
thank-
it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board. So tonight, I'm going to be presenting some of the town-owned properties in Hanson. I have a short PowerPoint here that's going to touch on we're going to highlights of specific properties that may have potential for revenue or development by the town. So it's taken me a while because it's been an extensive list. So the existing number of properties, the current number of properties owned or controlled by the town of Hanson is approximately 72. 17 of those have public buildings or public spaces. Properties that are under town ownership, some through various departments, might be water department, conservation, there's 55. So totals out to about 72. And I have a feeling that I may have missed one or two stragglers because we have little parcels here and there and just about everywhere. So for the disposition of town-owned property, that falls under Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 16. Also, I was made aware that Article 35 of the 1963 Hanson Town Meeting requires consultation with the Hanson Conservation Commission prior to disposition of land as a means of conserving wasteland for conservation. From 1994 to 2020, there was a list provided to me by the Treasurer Collector's Office. So from 1994 to 2020, the town of Hanson has taken 36 of the 72 properties listed in the report for taxes. The total amount of taxes owed at foreclosure as of the date of January 12, 2021 was $620,814.52. And now within there's also a septic loan on one of the properties that the town owns. So in the report I have for the existing properties categories, the properties listed within the report fall into three categories. Conservation land, and when I say conservation land, land that would just has resource areas and that it'd just be better off to go into conservation. You're not going to build on it, it's never going to be used other than conservation land. Water Department credit land, I had a conversation with one of the Water Department board members who said that the Water Department is looking for 10 acres of credit land, that they need some credit land. And so I was able to actually find within a Zone 2, and that's a nitrogen, that's a wellhead protection district. So you're limited to the nitrogen or the size of your septic. It's based on 10,000 bedrooms per day. So they're looking for, within this Zone 2, about 10 acres of land. So I was able to find, between some of the properties, a little over 50 acres of land. So hopefully they'll be able to utilize that because it's land that is, in essence, we'll call it waste land, it's dead land. So they may have to kind of fight with conservation to see, or have a conversation with conservation to see about who gets that, but they said that they needed that. And then last was buildable or potentially buildable land. So the number of recommended parcels for conservation out of this list are about 12 of them. Number of recommended parcels for the Water Department credit land are about 8. And the number of recommended lots for potential building is 11. The remaining miscellaneous parcels are already in a specific use, i.e. drainage easements and so forth. So buildable or potentially buildable properties, I would just want to make a note that the properties listed under this section would require further investigation to determine their potential. So the first one is 212 Industrial Boulevard. And give me 1 second here. And let's see if I can get there. Come on. Hold on. Come on. This is at the industrial park. There we go. Here we go. Okay. So this is up at the industrial park. It's known as map 52, lot 17-16. It contains 3.3 acres. It does have a resource area in the form of a wetland, which is in this area here, adjacent to Industrial Way, Industrial Boulevard. It's within the commercial industrial zone and also in the medical marijuana overlay district. It also does fall within a Zone 2 wellhead protection district. But this is a potential vacant piece of land that's owned by the town that could be sold off for a business or an industrial building. Access would probably be through Franklin Street versus Industrial Boulevard. If it was to be sold off for development, they would require Board of Health approval, Conservation Commission approval, and probably zoning approval for site plan. So that's one piece you have up in the industrial park that would create potential for business. The second piece is 533 Main Street. This is map 40, lot 24. It's 3.34 acres, but this plan that you see in front of you says that the highlighted area is roughly about 5 acres, so I have to just verify that. It's the former LZ Thomas School. It currently has 6 apartments. This is located within a Residence A zone. There is a resource area along the rear portion along this line. If you follow the bouncing laser ball, it's along the back, but the remaining portion of this property is upland. This site is controlled by the Housing Authority, but there's a potential here to create additional housing and affordable housing for the town. And it's part of we'll call it a larger site because the town owns this site here and this site here, which I'll be discussing. So there's a potential there for creating housing. We are going to have to meet the MBTA standards for multi-unit housing. And we're also looking at the 40R overlay district, so the town may be able to create some housing here for its own residents on this property. One of the improvements that would have to be made to Main Street is there's no sidewalks in that area, so we'd have to look at doing something as far as sidewalks, let's say to get to the train station, if that was the case. The next one is 555 Main Street, which is adjacent to the LZ Thomas. And that's map 33, lot 17D, and it's approximately 1.2 acres, and there's the former meeting house that's out there. It's a historical building. It's located within a Residence A zone. I think there's a little bit of the resource area that, at least on this plan, shows off the corner here. This site could be combined with 533 to create additional housing or affordable housing, or potentially there's talk about, I believe, moving this structure up to the hospital site.
Yes.
To create a, we'll call it a live museum, if you will. But there also may be potential to keep it right where it is, and if they're getting money to, let's say, renovate it and incorporate it into this site, as far as housing, maybe use it as, not use it as housing, but use it as a common space. Whether a meeting house or community center. I mean, it's not a large building, but, you know, maybe it could just be incorporated into the site versus moving it all the way up to the hospital site.
I'm sorry, Tony, can I interrupt?
Sure.
How would you accommodate the Historical Society then?
Well, that's all things we'd have to investigate. This is one of those this is one of 100 steps, so we're looking at,
Okay.
I mean, the alternative is to move it up to the hospital site and deal with that way.
Kurt Tarvis, I wish he hadn't had to leave right when he did, because he actually has a lot of information on this, but he presented to the Economic Development Committee the proposal, which has been bandied about for a number of years, to make like a little historical village up there and move those buildings up there. But he's focused right now on fixing up the Bonnie House so that he can move all those artifacts from the other little outhouses and what have you that are right near the LZ Thomas up to a temperature controlled, secure, dry place. quite a few of them have gotten destroyed where they currently are. So it's something he's noodling on the Historic Commission. I believe he's also gonna go talk to Community Preservation about whether they have some funding that they can offer, because it would be historic preservation and restoration. And then, I think, you know, the Economic Development Committee would really like to support him doing that, because we think that will make that Plymouth County, site just that much more attractive for people to visit it, because you'll have the park or whatever the, you know, Plymouth County reuse guys are gonna do. And then you'll have the Bonnie House with the artifacts, and then you'll have the little village, and it, you know, and then if we can just get some sidewalks or some way for people to get from Main Street up to Plymouth County Hospital, we could have a lovely little location up there. So I know that took us a little off track, but.
So there's that option, or, you know, keeping it there. It's either or, depending on what works best. The next piece along here is Zero Main Street. I know this is dear to your heart, Mr. Hickey. This is map 40, lot 24-1. This is...
That's not to scale.
This is 1.19 acres.
I'm gonna interrupt you.
This is an existing,
gonna continue.
it's an existing ball field, but listen, you're not reading. It says contains no resource areas. Either the site could be combined and with Main Street, LZ Thomas to create additional housing, or it could be, the ballpark could be incorporated as a recreational area within the housing development, or moved to the future McQuon site if that takes off, or this site could remain as is, but also be a potential site in the future as the town develops as a potential second fire station site, if so needed. Because
And if we were to do something with it, naming rights of Jim Hickey Way would likely move to the new McQuon site, okay, if that were to happen.
So, you know, because, you know, you have to think of, as the town develops, you may need a second fire station. I mean, and the fire station that's down there on Main Street right now is just not gonna cut it.
Right.
So if there's a second site, I mean, this is over an acre of land, it may be a site that's worth considering for something to that effect. So the next one is 308 McQuon Street, which is the highlighted area here. This is known as map 70 lot 37. It's just under half an acre. It's adjacent to McQuon Pond, located within a Residence A zone. At one point, it did have structures on it, which are no longer there. But because this site is adjacent to McQuon Pond, it would be a great site, so let's say for a scenic lookout or a small recreation area overlooking the pond. You could create potentially a small parking area with some green space and some sitting areas. That's probably the best use for that property. Part of this property is going to be incorporated into the TIP project of the McQuon Street improvement. They're proposing to put some drainage out there. But, you know, this could be used, I think, best as a scenic overlook. That would be the best thing. It's a great spot if you stand there. And the next one is known as 0 West Washington Street. This is up by the industrial park. It's known as map 67, lot 17-14. You have just over 7 acres. You have 160 feet of frontage along West Washington Street. It's located within the commercial industrial zone. The commercial industrial zone requirements are 200 feet of frontage and 44,000 square feet. The site is traversed by a water main easement that's 70 feet wide. A portion of the site does contain a resource area, which I believe is in the back here. And a good portion of it is in the wellhead, Zone 2 Wellhead Protection District. But there is, with proper engineering, potential to develop, I think, this property into, let's say, maybe not so much an industrial park, but maybe a business park. Then maybe get something out of it, maybe a couple of lots, depending on where the resource areas fall.
Is this the property that's near the water department building?
The water department building would be right next door. So there is potential there. It's in the, you know, if we're looking for business and trying to increase our business, there isn't a lot of room in Hanson. So, you know, there's potential there. And again, all these would have to be investigated. And then the last is 2 residential properties that have, I think, probably either famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it. One is 69 Wood Street. map 69, lot 40. It's a 6,200 square foot property. It contains an existing two-bedroom dwelling. Currently, there's no resource areas shown on there. It is located within a Zone 2 wellhead protection district, so this would require a new septic system. That would have to be an innovative system and or credit land for nitrogen loading. So for example, it's a two-bedroom house. Title V is, the minimum is two-bedroom. But when you're in a Zone 2, you need 10,000 square feet of land area for every bedroom. So if you want to, let's say, you know, you have 6,200 square feet. Realistically, that's not even a one-bedroom house on that lot.
right.
So you'd have to do an innovative system and or credit land within another Zone 2. So what you do is you carve out what you need in the difference in another Zone 2, and then that goes through the Board of Health and then the DEP. So the dwelling is an existing dwelling. It's possible that it may be renovated, but that'd be up to, let's say, the building inspector and or any potential buyers to determine. I think that any expansion of that footprint would most likely require some kind of zoning approval and obviously Board of Health approval. And then last but not least is 62 Ocean Ave. Right now, this is an 11,400 square foot vacant lot. There was a dwelling on this. It has been raised. So it's just a vacant property. It has two leaching areas on it. One is for number 51 Ocean Ave and one for the former dwelling. Now this lot may be, and I'm going to put in air quotes, may be considered an existing non-conforming lot under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6 of the Zoning Act. But that would be up to the zoning enforcement officer to take a look at and decide what he felt. It is bordered by a resource area along the back, and if this was to be able to be built upon, it would require Board of Health, Conservation, and zoning approvals for any new structure. So those are the ones that I chose, and this is what I'm going to hand to Lisa. I didn't make a copy of it, but this is the report. This is all the properties. This has basically a report that I wrote, what you can do with it, copy of the property card, and a map, so you know where the site is. So I'm going to give, and also a copy of the this presentation, and copies of the property cards of all the public properties that are owned, in other words, town hall, fire station, police station. So I'm going to hand this to Lisa.
That's amazing work, Mr. DeFrayis.
And,
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
So that's what I found. There's a lot of parcels. They're little parcels. They're landlocked. They're in the middle of nowhere, and it's understandable that the town owns them because they're never going to be built upon. So the people just walked away from them and let the town take them in taxes. So these.
Is this available, like, like in PDF format or on the website or anything?
Not as of yet. I just finished that today. It's taken me. It has been a tedious. It's been a lot of work. I've been trying to get to it and finish it, and I finished it today at probably 4:30. Finally, to my standard.
What is it?
The presentation or
No,
the? Oh, yeah. At
No,
some
this
point-
is
yeah.
this is excellent. Even this is a lot of work.
Yeah, at some point, we would like to have that probably uploaded and accessible, but, and we obviously have to have more conversations about, okay, now that we've got this information, do we want to do anything with this? How do we move forward with it, you know?
Right. I would recommend that, you know, if Lisa gets copies to any one of the board members or all the board members, that you read through them and look through them, because I think in essence you're going to have a sit-down session and decide, okay, which ones would we like to maybe sell on to try and get some revenue?
Mm-hmm.
Which ones are we just going to pass along, let's say, to conservation? Which ones should go over to the water department? There's a few lots in there that may fall under the existing non-conforming lots. They would need some, not challenging engineering, but, you know, they could be done. When I was in the private sector, I've had these type of, you know, it takes a little bit of thinking to try and make it all work. Other than that, there's not a lot. I wish I could tell you that, hey, you own 72 properties and they're all buildable and you can sell them all and make a ton of money, but it's not the case.
No, but there's a couple of that are very
But-
promising.
Right, I think the ones up by the industrial park
Yeah.
probably have the most potential, and probably worth further investigation. Because I think there's something to be, increase the tax base, even if it's a few businesses.
Yep.
And then Tony, also too, on those, you said there were some, small parcels, which, you know, probably not buildable, but could be between two other houses
Yeah.
where maybe the abutters on each side, you know, it's not a buildable lot, but they could
Yes, I mean, there's,
increase what they.
right, there's,
Their
right,
property.
right, if they choose to do so. You tend to find that, unless you're gonna give it to them, a lot of people don't wanna do that because they don't wanna pay the extra taxes. But there are cases like that. There's some that are between two houses, you know, and I think I think they have a good shot at falling under the existing non-conforming, and they're dry. So there's no resource area, so I think they have potential. But it would take a little bit of work, you know, so.
Anybody else have any questions, or?
The only question I have is, when do you sleep? It's unbelievable. Every time, I get excited every time you do a presentation, because honestly, you knock it out of the park every single time. You really, really do.
I
love your
try.
creative ideas, I love the attention to detail, you
Yep.
do amazing work.
Yep,
Thank you.
I agree. Mr. Hill?
You mentioned that the property on the left is a Zone 2 wellhead protection. Is any chance that the one on the right is also, or you mentioned you gotta do nitrogen?
No, the one on the right did not fall under the Zone 2. It does have some wetlands in the back of the property. And all these properties are in the book. I broke it down into the ones that the 6 that I spoke about here, and including these 2 properties, and there's some additional ones. And then there's what I'll call the other ones. And then at the end of the book is all the public spaces that the town owns. So, and I have a feeling there's 1 or 2 out there that I probably missed, you know. I know there's one that I think it has a good chance of being a buildable lot as an existing non-conforming, and then there's 2 small parcels that are directly adjacent to it, that if you combined it, it would make it just much that closer to zoning. So, I think there's potential there that, you know, you should probably consider examining, and then make a determination. But I think you're gonna have to sit down and, in essence, go through each one and take a look. So, which, you know, at any point, if the board wants to do that, just to let me know, and I'll sit down with you.
I only have one other question. The tax title properties are not in that.
These are all the properties that the town owns that you've either taken through tax,
Okay.
okay, or were donated to the town, or a lot of them were taken through taxes.
Okay.
But the ones that were taken through taxes, the town owns. You own them. It's not still in litigation.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Melisi?
Yeah, sorry, this is like a topic, so, it's actually funny that I didn't know this was gonna be, on tonight, but I have a piece of land in front of my house, it's actually town owns, it used to be Old Brook Street. It's about 0.09 acres worth of land, and it's currently an easement that was approved at the town meeting in 2014. I mean, I would like to get that piece of land so I can finish my front yard. It cuts my front yard and my driveway in half essentially. So, I mean, I don't know what would be the process for starting.
$1,200 and it's yours right now. We take cash.
That is not the process.
Yeah, so like, what would be the process for me getting it started on buying? So I'm actually pretty sure I'm paying taxes on that property too, even though it's.
If it's not part of your lot, you should not be paying taxes.
Yeah, there's no way you're paying tax.
I'm doing more information.
Do more information on it, but when I annexed a piece of property onto my property, I had to survey all the property, bring it to the town, it's a Form A plan, and it's a process. I think, at the time, it was $750, I believe. And, you know, it was fairly straightforward. The most expensive part of it was getting the surveying done.
But the question is whether we've got that on the rolls to be sold.
Yeah, you gotta see.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we can't really do anything with it unless you want to turn Brook Street into a highway, but, you know, what Mr. Hickley.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Well,
It
Ann
already
just
is a
mentioned,
highway.
yeah, $750, inflation, it's gonna be at least 12, Frank.
He
I'm
wants
telling you.
$1,200.
Okay,
I mean, obviously, we can't just sell it to you, it would have to go to auction, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, like a public, you know, open
I
process.
did it
Tony,
from
would that be
private.
something
I
you
did
could
not
help
do it from town. I did it
Mr.
from
Malisi
private.
out with?
as far as,
Just point them in the right direction of where to get the ball
I
rolling.
spoke with Lisa about it before, because there is a certain, I talked to her about it actually 3 days ago, because there is a certain limit that you have to auction it off at.
Right.
This is not that expensive, it's an unbuildable lot, it's 0.09 acres, so probably be right around Mr. Hickey said, especially since you can't build on it, but I just don't know the process of going through and actually, saying, because it has to go to a town meeting vote, obviously to sell it off, or like what would be the process for me doing that and kind of making that,
I think it starts off with us having to confirm that it's actually town-owned, right?
it is most certainly town owned,
Yeah.
for a fact.
But it doesn't have to go to town meeting. If we own it, we can have the auctions for the tax title properties.
Right.
Now, if that's town property that you want to buy, then maybe we would have to go to town meeting.
You only have to auction over $35,000.
Right, but he's saying if we don't auction, then maybe town meeting has to approve the purchase.
well, I think.
But then again, it could be so low that it's
Well-
a waste.
I mean, MGL Chapter 30B, Section 16 talks about how towns can dispose of property. And then the other thing is, if the Conservation Commission decides that that's wasted land and they want it, they have the ability to say that they'll take it. I think it's just a matter of now the board needs to go through the list and then decide, what do we want to do with this? And then we can.
orphan piece isn't in that list, is it?
It probably is.
Probably is?
Yeah, because I believe I do have some properties that were on Brook Street, yeah.
Yeah, so when we get copies of that, we'll go through
Yeah,
it,
find
and
it
we'll
for
start
us.
there,
This
so we
is
can
just the
confirm
first
it.
of many steps.
No, I understand
Yeah,
completely,
yeah. Okay,
And
any
that's-
other questions for Mr. Jafres?
Thanks, Tony.
Great
Thank you
job.
so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe, you got 750, because we'll outbid them. We'll do 1,500, outbid them, and we'll own in front of Frank's house.
Put a toll booth.
We want to put that lemonade stand.
Oh, we can all go together, okay.
That's what it is. We're gonna put a toll booth right in front of your
Okay,
house, right when you drive.
and, Mr. Melisi, I'm sorry that I had kept you waiting. I noticed you're here to be appointed. This will fall under the caption, "No good deed goes unpunished," and that you had applied for capital improvement. Were you sticking around for anything else?
That and executive session.
Okay, all right, so then I don't need to feel super guilty
Yeah,
about
did you guys already appoint me to capital?
No, not yet,
No.
Okay.
Lots
But I
of
was,
questions.
I was gonna
Lots of
take things
questions
out
for
of
you.
order. Yes, I was gonna take things out of order if that was the case. Thank you very much, Mr. DeFrayis.
Very welcome.
Okay, and we voted, we're going to table, the 171 Phillip Street. Election workers' appointments in your packet, there should be a list of election workers. And I am looking for a motion to appoint, the folks that are listed in the election workers handout for a term to expire August of 2023.
They all want to stay on as election workers?
These have all been vetted and confirmed. Yep,
So moved.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And vote on the Select Board 2022 to 2023 calendar.
Which we have right here.
I have no problem with the calendar itself, but I'm just wondering where we come up with, is there like a reason for the dates to be?
Well, the meeting dates, a lot of the stuff is backing into town meeting and the prep needed for that. And then the fact that we typically meet at least twice a month. And then the rest of the stuff is just, we're making that up as we go in terms of who's coming to present to us.
It's not like the first and third?
No, well, no, I think it is supposed to be, some kind of cadence. I don't know particularly what it is, but,
It doesn't look like it.
no, it does seem a bit hodgepodge.
And these ones that say due date only, these are not
That
meetings.
means those are not
Board of
meetings,
Selectmen.
those are just the things that, like, for instance, Lisa on that date will send something out saying, reminder, on the 19th, I need your budget and your, capital improvement committee, requests. And then, due date, annual report, she'll send out to all the chairs. You guys need to, by that date, you need to get that. So, yeah, they're not meeting dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the selectmen calendar as presented.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, we are chugging along here. We also have vote to open the warrant for October 3rd special town meeting, which seems quite shocking, but here we are.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor? And Lisa, just to level set, what is the due date for the departments to have their articles to us?
So the due date is August 23rd.
Okay, yeah, I know, I wondered.
And just, I know, for annual town meeting, we were gracious and we did accept articles after the due date. This time that, unfortunately, that cannot happen.
No, we're shutting it down.
We have one person in the select board's office. We can't accept any articles past up to August 23rd. So I highly suggest that all the department heads get their articles into us sooner rather than later.
So now that we've officially, voted to open up the, or are about to vote on it, can we also have you send out a reminder to tell people what the due dates are and all that, just so?
Yes, I will send out the memorandum tomorrow to let them know that the warrant is open for the October special town meeting and to get me their articles as soon as possible with the due date of August 23rd.
Okay, and did we have a motion? Got it.
Yes, definitely.
And a second?
Better have a motion.
I should have used the
I don't know if
gavel.
we had a motion. I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, great. All in favor? All right, great. We've got recognized James Garinitis resignation from the Economic Development Committee. I must say, I thank Jim for stepping up. He was very helpful, and he was a critical member of the committee, but I will entertain a motion to recognize his resignation.
So move with regret.
Okay?
Second with regret.
All right, all in favor? And choose auctioneer for 69 Wood Street and 62 Ocean Ave. Ms. Green?
Yes. So, normally, auction services are exempt from 30B because there's really not a way that you can determine the exact cost of an auction ahead of time because we don't know what the property's going to go for. However, there was a suggestion that we at least ask for proposals for auctioneer services. So in your packet, there's proposals from two companies, and one is for Sullivan & Sullivan, which the town has used in the past with much success. The other proposal is from Saperstein Auctioneers, and the town of Whitman has used Saperstein with success. If you look at the proposals, each auctioneer is different in their services. Sullivan & Sullivan asks for 5% of the buyer's fee. I believe it's 5% of the auction amount. They add 5% on it, which is paid for by the buyer of the property. And that covers all the services, including the research that they do for the property, all the advertising, and all of any follow-up work. Saperstein, if you notice, they ask for 3%. Then they have a flat fee of about $1,000 that covers their advertising and all of the prep work up to the auction. And then they have a $550 fee for the signage on the properties. Again, I know we had our tax title attorney, Laura Brown, in a few weeks back to discuss the two properties, and she made some suggestions. I do have a follow-up here. There was a matter on 62 Ocean Ave of whether it was a buildable lot or not. As the board may remember, back about 5 years ago in 2016, there was a dwelling on the property that was raised, as our town planner mentioned. And basically, under the variances, you only have 2 years to rebuild on a property. Other than that, it expires. So basically, the property right now, it's not buildable. However, the buyer can go to zoning and ask for a variance to build. That's a tough sell because that is going to impact the price of the that the property sells for. If there's a way that we can determine ahead of time that property would be granted a variance as a buildable property, we would benefit more money in the long run from the auction. If we cannot, then we'll benefit far less money, because obviously a buildable lot is worth much more than a non-buildable lot. So
This property is a property where a septic betterment loan was taken out. And, by some oddity, we don't know exactly how this happened. Although, we're talking about 62 Ocean Ave. The septic for 51 Ocean Ave was also located at 62 Ocean Ave, across the street. And according to what we had a conversation with our tax title attorney, she in all her years has never seen, in her 30 years, I believe she said, she had never seen anything like this, which is not what you want to hear about a town property that you're thinking about auctioneering off. It seems that the amount that's owed is rather large, and so we're in a weird position where it's possible that if we sell that property, because we're the owners, we have to pay off that septic loan that was taken out by the folk, the person who's deceased, and pay that out of the proceeds. There may not be enough proceeds to completely pay that septic loan off. This seems like a really bad end result. And I find myself perplexed about how two septic systems could have been located on one property when it's for two separate properties.
across the street.
Across the street and under the road. I have so many questions about this that it's boggling my mind on so many different levels. And then I've got questions about whether we can somehow go to OCPC, who does these septic loans, and say, look, here's the situation. You've been accruing interest all this time. The town owns it. We're not profiting from this. In fact, we're probably going to end up losing money if we sell. We're losing money one way or the other because we have to pay the septic. So whether we keep the property, and I don't know why we would, because we don't really have any, credible use for it, but if we decided we were going to do that, and if we sell it, we still have to pay the septic loan. So I really want to know what our legal recourse is as far as that septic loan. And I think there's pitfalls for the unwary here, because I want to be fully armed. I want this board to be fully armed with all the facts of, do we in fact have to pay that septic back? Are we bound by that agreement? Is the fact that there was something, we'll say, unorthodox perhaps, that happened with those two septics, does that give us some ability to push back on at least paying the portion that's attributable to the 51 Ocean Ave? So I think we need a little bit more information, at least I feel like we do. And then we've got, on top of the oddity with the septics, we've got the second piece that you just discussed, which is there was a building there, and if one wall of it had been left, we perhaps would have had the ability to say it's grandfathered, and whoever buys it would be able to build something on that property, but we don't have that ability to make that representation. So if we go to sell it, then, it's obviously caveat emptor, we all know, buyer beware, and that's what we say all the time. But I think reasonably somebody would look and say, well, there's a septic there, and there was a house there, and there's houses all around us, so maybe I could build. I don't want to set us up for a situation where, even though we're not saying that it's buildable, somebody infers that it is because of the location. And I know we'll have disclosure, and I'm not really necessarily worried. I'm not talking about our legal position, because I know we'd have a good solid legal position. I just don't want to get into a whole can of worms where we're having somebody buy a property that realistically they can't do something with. Now, if it's somebody in the neighborhood who just wants it to have a piece of property that's adjacent to theirs or nearby for additional parking or something, that might be different. But I think we need to get this information about what are we owing on the septic, what can be done about the interest, and because clearly there was some kind of a misstep, whether it was OCPC or the town itself that made a misstep on allowing the fact that septic loan was all levied against one property versus split between the two. is there some recourse for us as the owner?
Do we even know that the septic loan was split into two? Or does
It was
only-
not split into two.
No.
When Ms. Brown spoke to us, you know, about the property, she said that, she was absolutely befuddled because she's never seen
Yeah.
a situation where not only was it located on that property, but it was also, you know, levied against the other property. So, but at the time, they were both owned by one person.
Right, okay.
So it kind of made sense, but it wouldn't have taken a brain surgeon to look ahead and say, there's a possibility somebody might split these properties, so we can't levy the entire fee against this one property, but that was not done.
Right.
So I think, you know, I don't know if we can have a conversation with Kate or somebody from her office, Lisa, that specializes in land use, and OCPC, and figure out what is our liability here. Because how can we in all good conscience decide we're gonna move forward until we have those facts? Mr. Heel?
As far as the buildability of the lot, is there anything we can do to have somebody, zoning board of
Well,
appeals,
that's
check
what
it
Lisa was
over?
gonna, that's one of the things that Lisa had sort of started off by saying.
Right.
Is like, she's gonna talk to Virginia, see if
Okay.
she can have a conversation with ZBA. You know, not binding, but just a general conversation, you know, like, look, here's where we're at, it's the town property. You know, it's because we, in our zeal to clean up what was there, we removed the wall, which then, you know, so Kerry, as our enforcement officer, cannot say it's buildable, only ZBA can say that because it's gonna be a variance, so.
I don't know if the zoning board can then put something, so, like, on the sale, to say, if you buy this property, you can build a X size house, so 2-bedroom or
Well, we just
1-bedroom.
heard that lot
What you
is
can
too
build on
small
that lot
for
that is
a
binding.
two-bedroom
Right.
house. We just heard
Right.
that. He just told us that
Yeah.
that's too small, because they want 10,000 square feet per
Right, that's what I'm
bedroom.
saying, they need to say
Yeah,
what it
so they can
can,
put one
what
bed.
the zoning board of appeals will allow.
Yes.
So somebody buying the house can say, oh, if I can only build a 1-bedroom studio-type apartment-size house, or if I can build a 3-story house, that matters how much I'm gonna
All right,
pay
so
for.
I think we need to, is the board generally in agreement, we need to table 62 Ocean Ave, the sale of that until we have more facts?
Oh, yeah, it's
Okay.
a lot of money to mess around with.
Okay, and, but what about 69 Wood Street?
Proposal's the same
Well,
for both.
well, no, I'm saying, I'm sorry.
You wanna
Yeah, but we
sell-
don't have the 2 septics and all that other
Move
jazz
forward with
on this.
69.
No,
Yeah.
69 Wood Street is just, that's the property that has the dwelling, the 2-bedroom home already on it.
Yeah.
So,
Is there any financial benefit to hiring an auctioneer for one while we're pending the other? Do we have to,
Like scales of economy type
yeah,
of
does it
thing.
make sense just to wait till we have both figured out and then hire it, or does it?
the proposal's the same for both properties. I don't think it makes any difference if we have just one auctioned off or if you want to wait. I mean, as far as the septic, I'll reach out to OCPC tomorrow, to see what I can find out. In Virginia, I'll talk with Virginia tomorrow to see what process may be available to us, and also, contact town council as well. So we may have some answers hopefully by the next meeting.
Okay,
I can
so
provide.
that said, in terms of the 2 proposals, from the 2 auctioneers, was there a recommendation from Laura Brown, our tax title attorney? Did she think there was one that she's worked with that was perhaps better, or she's more comfortable with, or?
Not necessarily Laura Brown, however, Gene Sullivan had stated that the town has used Sullivan and Sullivan in the past, has had no issues, have been very happy with the service. And said the town hasn't used Saperstein prior. I know they've used him in Whitman and have been happy, but Hanson has used Sullivan and Sullivan for many of their auctions in the past.
And what's the cost analysis?
Well, it's tough to
But
analyze because.
Let's say it's a
so-
$30,000 property, let's just say.
Well,
I'm
there's
making it,
this
you know.
is fairly clear. This first one from, this Pesco is clear.
Yeah, for some reason,
But
I
the
don't
second
know.
one is not clear at all
Yeah.
as to what the fees might be, never mind the sale.
I was thinking the same thing. I think you said, Lisa, that it was like 5% with Sullivan, this one's 3% with some fees? So if you just did a
Yes.
straight $100,000 auction, just did the math.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a break-even
Yeah.
point, like where one is, if it's over 300,000, one of them's better than the other, or you know, whatever that line is. I'm not sure if anybody's done the math, but.
And
Just on basic, you know, if 69 Wood Street, say, sells for 200,000, then Sullivan would just add a 5% onto that the buyer side, pays. And then that includes all the advertising and the signage and things like that.
And then this is broken
Yeah,
out.
and then Saperstein breaks it out, right? They do a 3%, and then they have the 550 for the signage, and then the costs for the advertising.
And we're incurring those costs?
Nope, it's all paid by the buyer of the property.
Okay.
The town doesn't pay any
I
of the
didn't think
costs.
So, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, do we?
we've been
wanna-
using Sullivan and
Yeah.
Sullivan since we started, Laura.
They've done a good job. I
Yeah,
mean,
we've got 0 complaints. I mean, you know.
It's very straightforward.
Yeah, I agree. It's very I feel like I need a little bit of a decoder ring for the
Right,
other one.
right.
Well, for me, it's just a matter of, I mean, if they both have equal success, if neither one is cheaper, they're both not gonna cost us anything, just go with what's tried and true.
Okay, I agree then. Ed, what are your thoughts? Okay. Do you need us to take a formal vote? I will entertain a motion to, hire Sullivan and Sullivan as our auctioneer.
So move.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great.
What I would like to add, to the conversation, because this looks like, the proposal was just for 69 Wood and 62 Ocean.
Right.
So we don't wanna review anything that Tony went through in that book yet, just have him do this one.
Start with.
We've had success.
We have had
when
success.
We've done more
Yep.
than one, you know, when we've had 8 or 10 or 12 properties
Yeah.
on there.
On the same auction, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
That's what you're saying, is do it all on the same day?
I don't know if we've got that much inventory, because when we first came on, there was quite a bit of inventory that had accrued. And you pushed and pushed, and we ended up having a couple of back-to-back sales. Lisa, is there any way for us to get a list, of the properties that conservation would not want? Because I know they've already looked at all of them, they get first dibs anyway. That we might want, that we might want to put up at auction. And I understand what Tony's saying, that, you know, some of it might be landlocked or it might be wetlands. But I mean, what the heck have we got to lose if we put it up for auction and nobody bids on it? You know, then that's fine, but at least we could get it off of our tax roll, you know.
It's 24.
It's 24.
Oh, wait, with Frank's, 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he wants his on there.
If you bought my front lawn, I'm buying the softball field.
Okay.
Before the pandemic,
Oh,
Joe,
God.
and Laura, you guys were here, but, we did quite a lot of work on it to get
Yes.
it narrowed down.
Yes, we did.
And at one point, they were 32, but it wasn't separated the way you want, which, you know, I think we could do. I definitely don't wanna rush this, so
No.
if 69 Wood is gonna be it, you know, just to let Ed and Ann see how Sullivan do their thing, you know, I would be good with that, but, you know, the best time to do it, and I think Laura would tell you, is in early fall,
Yes.
late summer,
Yep.
or the spring.
Yep.
Because that gives the contractors that time
Yeah.
to either demo and get ready to rebuild, or demo and rebuild before the winter.
Yep, totally agree. So for tonight, I think we're saying, let's move forward with 69 Wood Street, and then, if you can just work with Tony and, you know, conservation, and I realize that's a Herculean task to winnow down that list and figure out if there are new properties that might be on the list that we didn't know about before. But if you could just kind of start pressing on that a little bit, Lisa, that would be great. Okay, committee updates. Did you have an update?
We need committees, no,
Yes,
we're
okay.
looking for, people to join.
You're looking for members to
Members
join
to
you
join,
in the
yes.
exciting highway.
Exciting highway,
The
yeah.
exciting highway feasibility study committee, maybe if you renamed
No, I was
it.
told that
we
there
would-
were some people on it before.
There
I
were.
don't have that list.
There were people on it, some of whom unfortunately are no longer with us, and I literally mean not
Right,
with us, not
right.
even just mentally. And also some who have just moved on to other positions or might not have an interest. I hope that we do get some volunteers, and maybe we can, work with, our Facebook, update person and also on, the town website to do a little description of what the committee does and kind of try to recruit some
interest,
people. Because I think Jameson copied you on that email.
Yes, he did.
About where we're at now. So I think we are ready to move forward. We've got, we just need people to help us do that. Okay, so that's a good update. Mr. Hickey?
Only, I had mentioned that there's a men's group down at the senior center on Wednesdays. And George Copeland pointed out to me that I neglected to say it were free coffee and donuts.
Oh, wow.
So I wanted to make sure that anybody that came down got a free coffee and donut, and sorry, George.
Every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday at 10.
At what time? 10?
Yeah, 10. Every
Now,
Wednesday.
What are we, have we heard back on the deregionalization from these TMS people who,
Yes, we have
Okay.
the report, and the Deregionalization Feasibility Committee is going to meet on July 27th to
okay,
discuss.
all right.
And make their recommendation to the board. Although every board member will have the 180-page report, to look at
We look
before,
forward to that,
we
yes.
come, because TMS will also come, or they were willing to come before. So, I mean, this is, yeah, it's.
Are they gonna bottom line it for us?
Yeah.
We need numbers.
Yeah.
Which we're lacking.
Yeah,
the
and
last
that's
time.
what we're gonna be going through, whether it's a full deregionalization, K through 8, or, what's best for the town, what's best for the students.
Okay, so if you guys are meeting on the 27th, and maybe you need a little time to digest and yada yada, then, I think our next meeting after that would be like August 9th. Does
Yeah.
that seem doable for that?
Yep.
Okay, so Lisa, can we queue up a deregionalization update for our August 9th meeting? All right, that's fantastic. And did anybody else have any burning desire to update, anybody on committees?
Yeah,
Mr. Weeks?
so, we had our, final Plymouth County Reuse Committee, Hospital Reuse Committee, meeting yesterday to get things back up and running. Committee hasn't met in a while for various reasons. So we did a reorganization, yesterday, which was great. And we got a lot of updates on a lot of the work that's been done, over the past, I want to say 12 months, that have just been kind of stalling from lack of ability to meet. So, we're gonna be meeting pretty frequently, probably 2 times a month, until we really get things up and running, to really kind of put some, final touches, or at least get things going. Committee's been doing a lot of great work, a lot of great updates. We're trying to figure out, if the well on the site is operational, and if that's the case, if we can do some type of irrigation, to kind of really make sure that whatever plans we have for that area, can take advantage of those resources there. We're doing some research on playgrounds, parks, splash pads, flower gardens, community gardens, all kinds of great ideas. So I'm really enthusiastic about the group that's there right now. Good representation across the board, so hopefully I have a lot more updates as we kind of figure things out. But right now, it's all kind of foundational, figuring out, where we are right now, and then we'll kind of operationalize some of that stuff in the near future. And then Capital Improvement Committee, I'm trying to figure out all the contact information for all the committee members that we've appointed, so we can get a good roster going, because now that we've just opened up the warrant, I'm going to include Mr. Malisi in the potential members that are here, but everyone in this line right here is on the committee, so I'm going to have to get everybody's information before you all leave, and before we go into executive session, because now that the warrant's open, we have to meet and then send out a lot of invitations for department heads so they can come meet with us, and we have to do that fairly timely so we can get those asks on the warrant on the matrix, so we can actually have town meeting in October.
Well, I'm excited that we have a full, almost full, but one member short on the capital improvement, but almost full roster, and we've got a lot of new faces, with, you know, a lot of passion and energy, and I think that's fantastic. Do you think we might expect to see any warrant articles from the Plymouth County, Reuse Committee, for October, any funding requests?
I would like to say yes. Right now, we're really just trying to figure out, we spent the last time trying to really get all of us kind of up to speed on everything going on. We're meeting again, first Monday in August. So, I'm hoping to have a better idea of what that is right now. But really, we just spent a lot of time yesterday just information gathering, but I don't anticipate us not having a lot of requests. We have a lot of work to do.
I suspect a lot of the things that you guys will want to do are gonna be community preservation eligible projects.
Yeah.
Park, garden, you know, that type of stuff, so, all right, well, that's awesome. And Mr. Hill?
I don't have anything.
Okay, I gave you guys a little handout, but because the hour's getting late, I'm not gonna go over it in exhaustive detail. But it was about and now I can't actually find it, but it was on the accomplishments of the Economic Development Committee. And in short, and I will really make it short, we've got a ton of applications out for various grants. For instance, a boardwalk from Main Street to Burridge, we've been working with Mr. DeFrayis on the 40R, MBTA community zoning with the planning board, down on Main Street. We've had the conversations about McQuon reuse. You know, there's you can read through here and, you know, I'll update you at some point in exhaustive detail, but it won't be tonight because we've had so many updates that I'm not sure anybody can absorb anything else. But I will say, I also, at the Economic Development Committee's urging, had reached out to Representative Cutler and our State Senator Brady, and requested that they keep us in mind when they are proposing funding articles in the upcoming budget cycle. And then in particular, we would like some money for sidewalks down on Main Street. And a few other little things, you know, some smaller things, such as the restoration of the Bonnie House, which, again, Kurt Tarvis is working on. And these all fall under that economic development umbrella. I'm hopeful we'll get something, but I don't know what, and you can't get it if you don't ask. So that's where we're at on that. With that, I've got 4 one-day liquor licenses, and I will entertain a motion to approve those as printed on our agenda. Moved. Okay. All right, all in favor? Okay, and then we have some minutes from the prior board, and just as a reminder, you don't have to physically be at a meeting to approve the minutes, but I'm not going to urge anybody to do something that they wouldn't feel comfortable with. Obviously, our meetings are recorded, but, you know, anyway, I will entertain a motion to approve the April 26th, 2022 minutes.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, great. I will entertain a motion to approve the May 17th, 2022 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a little cadence going. All in favor? Aye. Great. And then we have got appointments. We have the appointment of Chris Hoffman to the Conservation Commission. And Lisa, is typically our standard kind of process that we had outlined before, somebody on this board, either you or a member, should have met this person and gotten a sense from them whether they had any inherent conflicts that might crop up in the course of doing their duties.
So on that particular appointment, the Conservation Commission actually does not have any vacancies, so this person would be an alternate. I have not met them. I don't know how the application came into the office. The former executive assistant had put it on there, and then I was only informed that Conservation didn't have any vacancies, so this person would be an alternate.
All right, so I think, given that part, did you have any insight, Mr. Hill?
Just, I have met him, I know nothing about conflict of interest.
Yeah.
You did attend one of the meetings, and he seems like a nice guy, but I don't ask him.
Oh, okay, all right, well, that's valuable. I think, is it possible, Lisa, for us to just reach out to him and explain that there's no full vacancy? There is an alternate vacancy, which honestly, I'm not even sure the bylaw allows for, but okay. And that, we would like to meet him and just talk to him briefly. And obviously, it's not, super burning issue because there's no vacancy that he's actually filling. And then we have appoint Dave Mansfield to the Stormwater Management Committee. I had mentioned, I think to you, Ms. Green, there is no Stormwater Management Committee. It sounds like we should have one, but we don't. What we do have is a Drainage Committee, which I know we appointed Mr. Howard to, and Mr. Howard suggested at a different point in time that perhaps the stormwater management, the Drainage Committee be renamed Drainage and Stormwater Management, which completely makes sense. Those are compatible, totally agree. But I think we'll take that up at a different time. So for now, were you able to get back to Mr. Mansfield and tell him that we were actually going to appoint him to the Drainage Committee, which doesn't sound quite as...
I have not spoken to him
Okay.
yet. I want to wait and see what the board is going to do before I reach out to.
All right, so do we want to rename that committee, which is totally within our purview, the Drainage and Stormwater? And the reason it never would have been called Stormwater before was because those regulations didn't exist at the time that the Drainage Committee was originally formed. And they really do have a lot of overlap. And, for instance, Jameson is on the Drainage Committee because there's a highway, he's responsible. He's also responsible for stormwater management. I ran into Ernie Amato, at Moe's a couple weeks ago, and he reminded me how important the Drainage Committee is. And he said, it's extremely important. There's a number of things that, complaints and things that the Drainage Committee does, but he said, honestly, it hasn't met since we had Bob Brown. So it's been a number of years, and so it's, I think, another case of we need to exhume this and get it going so that it's contributing.
Of a very pressing need for drainage mitigation on State Street, directly across from my house. It doesn't affect me.
Okay, so
It
see
affects
this,
the road
and
terribly.
this, and actually Ernie was telling me,
Yeah,
because he
he
lives
knows.
right
He's
near.
right there.
Yeah, Hammond, and he was telling me about some nightmares down there, so.
That's bad.
So is there
Anyway, I will
nobody on it?
entertain a motion, oh, sorry.
Is there nobody on the committee?
Right now, there would be Jameson, just by
And
statute.
Mr. Howard.
And Mr. Howard. Okay.
So
And I believe, who did we, appoint as our representative?
Oh,
I resigned.
I was gonna say.
I remember
he
you
resigned.
resigned.
Right, I think I might have been.
Joe, I got
I think
scratched.
I thought that ball got volleyed into
Yeah,
the
it
court.
rolled down this end of the table.
It's you?
Okay,
Oh, thank
so
goodness.
we've got Mr. Eel, Mr. Howard, Mr. Amato did tell me he was very interested in staying on that committee.
You mentioned it yesterday, too. The only reason why I'm bringing it up, though, is just because I know it's within our purview to change the committee name, but I'm wondering, have they submitted like a formal request as
Well, they
members of the
haven't
committee?
met. So there's no committee meeting, like we're rebuilding this committee. This is yet again.
so we could rename it.
Joe, there's no
in the
meeting minutes
rebuilding
since
process.
2001.
No, it's totally fine.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that, if we're going to change the committee name and there's technically 3 people, including Ed, on it, that somebody asked for us to do this, as
Yes.
opposed, I know we can do it, but
Mr.
just.
Howard asked for it. I did discuss it briefly with Mr. Amato, who agreed that that would be simpatico.
Oh, I think it's a great change, and I
Yeah.
think it should be Stormwater Management and Drainage Committee, because I think
Yes.
It sounds way cooler.
It sounds
So was that a motion
way-
that you just made?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
change the committee name to Stormwater Management and Drainage Committee, and I think that it's a great committee that, again, just like the Capital Improvement Committee, it's one of those unsung heroes that I think gets left under the radar because it doesn't sound so exciting. But one of the things, if people do want to join this, is because there are town-wide requirements that we have to actually follow
Yes.
to fit the bill to be a fully functioning town, and we have to be able to meet those requirements. So it's actually incredibly important, and there's lots of drainage issues, to Ann's point, around town. And I think a lot of the times, people think it automatically gets looked at and fixed, but the problem is that it's not. So it can very much go neglected.
So this committee really helps our highway supervisor prioritize. So they are taking a look at all the various drainage and stormwater issues, and then they have their own budget for these issues, and the way it's supposed to work, but it hasn't worked for like 15 years, but it's supposed to work, is that they're supposed to be working with the highway supervisor and saying, based on what we're hearing, Jameson, can you prioritize these three things?
Yeah.
So it's that, and I think it's good because it gives our highway supervisor that additional citizen support and, you know, and a voice for citizens, like somebody they can come to, they could say, hey, I've got a problem. And right now, people just are like, oh, all right, do I just call Jameson? Which is, it's fine, he's been addressing issues, but I just think it's important to have that additional input.
Well, I also just want to make a, if it's okay with you, through you, I just want to make a
Please,
quick
feel free.
pitch to the tens of thousands of people watching live on TV right now, that this is another committee that I think has not a lot of time investment issues, but if you, like all of us here, you take pride in the town that you live in, you want to make sure it's beautified, you want to make sure that you're connected to keeping the roads safe, keeping the buildings safe, making sure that the land is safe. You get to network with other department heads, to your point. This is a great committee to get definitely introduced to, but be part of something that's incredibly important to keep the trains basically running on time. It's a really important committee, so.
So I will second
Thank you.
the longest motion I've ever heard in my life.
I will challenge that that's the longest motion. I don't know for sure, but it could be up there for a contender. All in favor? Aye. All right, great. And now, on to Mr. Mansfield's.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I thought you were going to number 3,
Nope.
but now that we have it.
And now to Mr. Mansfield's actual appointment to, well, it isn't technically the Stormwater Management, it's Stormwater Management and Drainage Committee. I will entertain a motion.
But
So
is he
moved.
asking to be a liaison or to be on
No, he
the?
wants to
No,
be
it
on
wants to be on the committee.
I know David. Yeah, he wants to be on the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so did I have a motion?
He had a motion,
Right,
I'll
I mean,
second.
yeah.
Okay, great, all in favor? Fantastic, moving along. And now we have the appointment of Frank Melissi to the Capital Improvement Committee. I will entertain a motion.
Oh,
You want me up there, you want me over here?
Could you step out for a minute, Mr. Melissi, so we can talk about you?
Yeah.
Okay.
so moved.
Second,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I've already
And
asked you
one
my
question.
question.
Oh, one question.
I've already asked it to him a whole bunch of
okay.
times, so. I mean, he's probably,
Mr. Hick, go ahead.
No, I was only going to ask Mr. Weeks' question.
yeah. Do you have any, but you've already asked it about, for every committee you've been appointed to. Any disclosures that you want to make to the committee and all that great stuff?
No, I mean, I made a disclosure for recreation, I don't think I have to make another one for
Right.
capital improvements, but, you know, as obviously Maria does a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Obviously on the recreation committee, so.
Well, we
Sounds
appreciate
good
your
to me.
continued engagement, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you very
Not
much.
everybody does.
Okay, and Ms.
We
Green,
voted, right?
what?
We didn't vote it. Did we, I got, was a motion a second?
Yeah,
Did we
yeah,
vote?
we
Okay,
did not vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. And
Congratulations.
Ms. Green, I noticed that we don't actually have you posted to give us an update this evening. Did you have anything super critical?
I did have couple of items I just wanted to provide some updates for.
Okay,
That we have spoke about in the past. So Thursday, July 14th was the official opening for the grant application for the technical assistance grant for the waste site cleanup. I did complete the application on Friday, took a little bit, and it is now in the hands of Tracy Costa, who will be adding the technical information regarding the site. There was quite a bit of history and information. That's a very large site, so I'm looking forward to her expertise to finish the application with the technical. So we're on our way, hopefully, to being awarded a grant to have the consultant on our side to help us through that process. To circle back on a conversation that we had at our last meeting regarding staffing in the Select Board's office and Town Administrator, there were some concerns that the towns that I had provided staffing to had larger populations than the town of Hanson. So I did some additional research and looked at other towns, and it's very hard to find towns with exactly the same population in this area. So I did do some research, and I do have some additional information. The town of Lakeville has a population of 11,523. They have a town administrator, assistant to the town administrator, an executive assistant to the select board, and town administrator in their office. The town of Hanover has
So
four.
I'm sorry, is that 4 people?
That is, they have 3 people.
Okay.
3 people. The town of Hanover, 14,833. Also, the town of Hanover has a much larger budget than the town of Hanson because they have a much larger commercial base. But however, their office includes a town manager, assistant town manager, assistant, an HR director, director of public affairs, licensing, insurance, and a communication specialist. So they have 5 people in that office. Freetown has a population of 9,206. They have an interim town administrator, they have an executive assistant, they have an administrative assistant. Kingston, population of 13,708. They have a town administrator, assistant to the Board of Selectmen, and assistant to the TA, town administrator and Board of Selectmen, so three people. Town of Acushnet, 10,559. They have a town administrator, executive assistant, and administrative assistant.
That's probably the closest to us in terms of
Closest,
population.
yes.
Okay.
Holbrook, interestingly enough, has 11,405 population. They have a town administrator and assistant to the town administrator. I did speak with them, and at their recent annual town meeting, that town meeting approved a 3rd staff member position who's going to be 19 hours a week in that office. The town of Whitman, 15,121 population. Have a town administrator and executive assistant. Prior, they did have 3. They had an assistant town administrator whom they've had trouble hiring a new town administrator. They are now looking to bring in a human resources, grant writer, and procurement officer in that, department. West Bridgewater, population 7,707, town administrator, assistant town administrator, and a executive assistant. So just to update those on those populations. Also, I had someone from one of our local restaurants come in.
Ms. Green, I'm
Oops,
sorry. Did you have a question, Ms. No, Green? I didn't have a question, I just had a statement. I got a lot of blowback from various and sundry people. And I have to say, they refuse to see the need, and I find that very interesting. We do have the need. I watched the need. Just because we didn't have it before doesn't mean we don't need it now.
Exactly.
And things have changed, especially with the Freedom of Information Act stuff that I saw everything going on that day, and, I observed it. People have to realize that things move on. Now, there was a study, I was told that there was some kind of a organizational study that we should be looking back on. Was it in 2009?
It was well before our time, but I think
Right.
the Collins Center, Lisa, did some type of a study, and I believe that wherever that study may be, it's gathering dust.
2009 is,
Yeah.
if I do my math right, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Things change in 13 years, and I'm saying this specifically so that it's heard.
Well, and you make a good point, Mrs. Rain. I mean, just one very small example is the online liquor license stuff that these guys have had to do. You would think that going from paper to online would be easier, but it actually is way more complex.
It's worse. And the point is, I understand, and I am all about fiscal responsibility. I really am. I'm
We
not
know
trying to
you are.
spend the
We know
town's
that.
money frivolously, but you can't have this going on where we're losing people because there's too much work. We can't have that. We need to fix it, and we need to fix it with another person. I really believe that.
I agree with that. I would even say, there's just some fundamental things, like an updated website, better communication out to the community. These things that we need to do that we're barely getting through the day-to-day, and so if we want to do more than just an okay job or even subpar job, and this is no reflection on Ms.
No.
Green at all, I'm just saying you can only do so much,
Right.
as a person. And I will tell you, I see her car here at all hours of the day. She's working weekends. She's, and I'm not saying anything that I don't say to you, Lisa, and I do get concerned about, balancing it out so you're not burnt out and we're looking for somebody new again. But I agree, Ms. Rain, we're not being, we're not we're not wanting to spend people's money
So
unnecessarily.
I gotta ask, who's gonna do the minutes tonight?
Well, interestingly enough, I heard about some comments that were made that somebody should be sitting here trying to do minutes as this meeting is going on. I sat here tonight and tried to do that. It's very tough.
Yep.
First of all, on a laptop, your cursor jumps all over the place. So 1 minute I'm typing, the next minute my cursor is up in a different line, I gotta fix it. Or it's bolding everything and it's not. And then I found it's very tough to keep up with the conversation and type at the same time when you're trying to listen and type. You can't do it. It cannot, even, and I have been. I have.
Because you're an integral part of the meeting.
Right,
That's the
right.
important
But
piece.
I consider myself an expert typer. I've been typing for,
Right.
30-something years. I am a very good typer. And to try and listen and type at the same time to a live conversation, it's extremely difficult. When you're listening to and watching, you can type easier because your attention is directed to that. But it's not gonna work, somebody sitting here with a laptop trying to do minutes. I mean, I do have some minutes done. I'll try and finish them up, but you can't do them sitting here in the meeting.
Mr. Weeks.
Yeah, I just think that, there isn't a board member here that isn't trying to keep the fiscal responsibility and the fiduciary responsibility paramount to our responsibility as a select board. I think it's financially irresponsible to try to do more with less, right? So the idea is if we need 3 people, but we're asking 1 or 2 people to do it, and that's causing turnover, it actually costs more to onboard people and offboard people than it does to actually just pay for what we actually need to get the job done. And the staff in the town hall give us their requests, they give us their needs, and it's our job to be able to meet the needs of the townspeople through those requests, but do it with our fiduciary responsibility to not waste taxpayer money. That's why we do what we do. So I think, our role really is to weigh, and this is why it's important to have information based on related towns, so that we can actually see, well, what are other towns saying to their select board people, and what are they taking to town meeting, and what are those communities willing to fund to meet the needs of their community, and we can take like-minded initiatives and bring that here. So I don't want to waste taxpayer money by not funding it, because right now we're paying too much money for someone to sit here and take minutes. That's my feeling on that.
I agree with that.
So,
Yeah.
but the reality is, we need to get somebody here that also has an administrative assistant. I don't know what the third position is, I don't know what's gonna be titled, we have to talk about that.
We do need
But I think that is gonna offload a lot of responsibility, so that the person that's supposed to be here taking the minutes while we're doing it, while we're having these conversations, can do that without feeling distracted about the 16 other hours worth of work they have to do when they leave here, because that's also gonna weigh on their minds, right? This town's been very blessed for 20, 30 years, whatever it was, where Mary Marini was here working 60, 70, 80 hours a week without complaining, with a smile on her face, and that's why she's missed as much as she is, because she did a lot of that to keep this town together, which is great. And she's been an amazing person. But those are incredible shoes to fill, and that's a one-in-a-lifetime type of person that's gonna come through here
That's
and
not
be
a
able to do it.
sustainable model.
It's not,
And
and
I'll
we're
tell
paying
you,
for that
I
now.
remember Mary telling me that when Rainey Reed first became the town administrator, he was like, this is crazy. The pace that this office, and so that was how many years ago? That was like 10, 12 years ago, and
Right.
since
But we
that
were able to
time,
kick
if you
the-
look at the number of people that we have lost, and what I keep coming back to, as somebody who's been in the private sector and managed for years and years, is you want to keep good people, okay? And in order to keep good people, you need to give them the support that they need to do their job. And then you need to stabilize. The town loses out by having a revolving door of staff. We lose out because our town hall employees have to get to know everybody. There's this all onboarding stuff of, who's who in the zoo, what do I do, what do you do? And it takes a while. There's a learning curve. Every time somebody comes into this position, we lose out. If we can stabilize this office and have
good, consistent performers in that office supporting this board, the sky's the limit as far as what this board can accomplish. But I guess my thing is, we're voted in to do a job, and I'm more than glad, and God knows I throw myself into it. I'm not a perfect person, but I'm willing to put in the hours, and I'm willing to put myself out there and do the job. And all that I think we need is the support. And I think we deserve, as elected people, to get the support that we need in the office that supports us.
Yeah, well, I think, just two more points, because I don't want to belabor it, because I can be long-winded anyways. It's just, I just think that when you're at capacity and everyone's saying we need 3 people for the job, and because we only had 2, it cost us 1, so now we're down to 1 person.
Yeah.
You run the risk of actually causing things to be forgotten or dropped,
Right.
which could end up with us being incredibly liable for something, which could cost us millions of dollars, when really what we need to do is just fund a position. And I know it doesn't sound right, but that really is the risk that you run. So you have to make an investment in good people to be able to make that happen. So I think that's the other piece. And then the last piece I'll make on this is the previous board, because my only experience on the board is the previous board and then this board, right? So previous board said we needed 3 people. We needed to do that, but we got busy, so we didn't get a chance to do that. We have 2 new people coming on board, also saying we need more people. So that's 2 more perspectives
Fresh eyes.
that were here.
Yeah, fresh
that were
eyes.
saying from the outside looking in, I have an opinion, possibly, about what we do and what we don't need. Now that you're here, you get to see, okay, no, we actually do need these. So the message has been pretty consistent, at least over the past 2 years. We need more people.
Right.
We need it. The work is too much. It's not a wish. It's a need.
Well, we just did it for Mary up at the senior center, and that was a battle.
Yep.
This is a battle we have to fight too, I
Yep.
think.
And again, there's a huge difference between a want and a need.
Right.
And it's not, no one wants this. We need this. And it's really important that we take it seriously.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you, Ms. Green, for that update, and hopefully you see where the board is at in terms of that. Was there anything else you wanted to add to your report?
Just a couple other things. So we've already been advertising for the position, the executive assistant position. We've got a number of great resumes, and we will be, scheduling interviews for the next couple of weeks.
And so the way, if you guys are amenable to this, rather than everybody having to interview everybody,
Right.
I thought we would vet, Lisa and I will vet, and then we'll bring, say 3 of the finalists or whatever, for the whole board to make sure that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't the way we just did the past administrative assistant, but we're all working with these people, and we all need to have a comfort level, so. So does that sound okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
We hope to have somebody by the
Do you want
August
both?
9th.
Do you
No, I
want to
don't
vote
know,
no?
no, I just need the general consensus of the board.
We hope to have finalists to come before the board for a final interview on the August 9th meeting. And then just to circle back around, I had someone from one of our local restaurants come in to the office yesterday. As you all remember, the annual town meeting voted to adopt the local sales tax, meals tax. Apparently the restaurants haven't received anything yet from the Department of Revenue. So if there's any restaurants out there that are listening, you can go on to the mass.gov site, go type in sales tax on meals in the search bar. Once you get to that window, scroll down till you'll see vendors, and there's a link for registration. You can go on that and register.
And Lisa, what date is that effective?
October 1st.
Okay, so it's probably, they're probably understaffed like most state or organizations. Is there any way for us to send out hey, you could expect something from the Department of Revenue, just so that, people are on the lookout for it?
When
When I say us, I don't mean you, because I'm not trying to add to your ever-growing list of things to do.
The health agent has all that information.
Maybe the health agent can send
Or
an email blast
the
out.
town treasurer, collector, that seemed like a
tax collector
It
kind
is
of
a
thing
tax
to me.
collector.
So to me, it seemed like, could we just be a little preemptive and say, hey, you may not have, because people may not know that it's passed, and they're gonna have to, do some training and, maybe ask their software vendor to tweak the, software, because we heard that was all that was really required, that it wasn't super heavy lifting.
Right.
But there are
It's not
some
heavy lifting.
steps. It's not completely, turnkey. So, I'm wondering if we could have a conversation with Jean to ask if she could send out a letter and, yes, work with the Board of Health,
Board of Health.
to get the list of the restaurants.
Absolutely.
That's what I was gonna say.
Mr. Hickey,
Board of
okay.
Health.
And it isn't just,
But you
the restaurants,
interrupted
it's
me.
Shaw's and,
Right, any
Yeah.
establishment that falls under
Right.
that umbrella,
Yes.
yes, yes.
okay.
Excuse me,
Mr.
Madam
Hickey,
Chair.
yeah.
Doesn't the audience have to raise their hand when they want to speak?
He's becoming like a de facto,
Good luck, Joe.
You know what?
Good luck, Ed. That's what you've got.
Used to be in the chair.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Green?
No, that will, otherwise I had a very nice walk prior to my surgery, over at the Burridge with Joan Pierce, who is with the Massachusetts Wildlife and Fisheries, Department, and, I think she said we walked almost 3 miles, which I did it. I have never been at the Burridge. It's breathtaking.
gorgeous.
It's absolutely gorgeous and breathtaking. It's definitely a love at heart to Joan Pierce. She could point out the trees, the wildlife, the area. It's an absolute gem in the town of Hanson. And they would like to work with us on preserving the Hawks Ave area, that portion of land, and work with us in possibly developing the Hawks Ave buildings into perhaps some type of a welcoming center for the Burridge, that maybe artists and photographers could set up shop with.
A little nature center there.
Nature, right, people to come on nature walks. So she was it was a very great meeting, and I really look forward to working with that agency for Mass for possibly bringing some business into that
that's
area.
awesome.
I think it's an awesome idea too, but we still need to put a bow
I know
on
we do.
the light control
but
feasibility.
I see that as a much better use of that facility.
I'd love
really
the idea of like a maker space where you could have glass blowing and various artists, and then the little welcoming center with, almost like the South Shore Natural Science
Science
Center
Center,
type
yeah,
of
that's what
thing.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. That would be amazing. So that sounds great. Just a FYI, if anybody else would like to join me, I can't have more than one other person join me in the interviews, because then we're violating open meeting law. But if somebody else would like to join me, we can throw out the schedule, and you're more than welcome to help vet the candidates. It doesn't have to just be me. So just, let us know if you're interested, if you have a burning desire. Okay, anything else, Ms. Green? Okay,
That will complete my report.
all right, well, we have been around the world and back
Yeah, we
again this
have.
evening,
Look
and
at
it
what
is
time it is.
8:20. Or 8:25, because that clock is wrong. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exception 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. To wit, police union, 410 Woodbine, and anticipated litigation. Exception 5, to investigate charges of criminal misconduct or to consider the filing of criminal complaint. To wit, Camp Kawani vandalism.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and I will take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, great. We are moving into executive session. Thank you for those that attended this evening, and I know you are staying with us, Mr. Melisi, for executive session. Ryan, we're good to go. Yep.